The rain started in the evening, soft and steady, covering the small town in Oregon with a calm rhythm that could almost make someone forget the world outside. Claire sat by the living room window, holding a mug of warm tea. Her house felt too quiet most days, too empty. Ever since her husband passed away 3 years ago, she had learned to live in silence, learning to fill the space with the sound of the clock or the hum of the refrigerator. She wasn't expecting anyone that night. Her weekends were usually predictable: a quiet dinner, a book, and early sleep. But when she heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway, her heart gave a small, unexpected jump. She stood by the curtain, watching headlights cut through the rain. And then she saw him, Ethan, her stepson, tall, confident, carrying the same easy smile he had since he was a boy. He hadn't visited much since leaving for college. Life had changed for both of them. He was 20 now, busy with friends, classes, and his own life. But seeing him again brought warmth to her chest, like sunlight breaking through the clouds. She hurried to open the door. "Hey, Claire," Ethan said, shaking off the rain from his jacket. "I hope it's okay that I came. I brought a friend with me. I didn't want to just show up alone." Before she could answer, another figure appeared behind him, slightly taller, with dark hair falling over kind eyes. "Hi," he said softly. "I'm Noah." Claire smiled politely. "Of course it's okay. Come in." "Both of you," she said, stepping aside. The warmth from the fireplace met the chill of the rain as they entered, bringing the scent of wet earth and cold air with them. Dinner that night was simple: pasta, garlic bread, and laughter. Ethan talked about his classes, his friends, the long drives through campus, and Noah listened with quiet amusement, adding a few comments now and then. He was different from Ethan, calmer, more observant. His eyes often drifted around the room, pausing on the family photos, the books, the small things that told the story of a home. Claire found herself talking more than she expected. She hadn't realized how much she missed simple conversation. The house that once echoed with emptiness now felt alive again. Ethan's laughter filled the kitchen, and Noah's soft voice carried warmth that settled quietly in her chest. After dinner, they moved to the living room. Ethan turned on the TV, flipping through channels. The two young men sat on the couch while Claire collected the dishes. She could hear them laughing, teasing each other about old stories. The sound made her smile. But there was something else, a flicker of nostalgia, a tiny ache she couldn't quite name. She glanced over her shoulder once, catching Noah's eyes for a moment. He looked away quickly, smiling faintly, and it made her heart beat just a little faster. Later that night, when the clock passed 11, Claire wished them good night. She went to her room, but her thoughts didn't quiet down. She could still hear their voices upstairs, muffled but warm, like a melody that refused to fade. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the rain tapping against the windows. She told herself she was happy, and she was, but the truth was, nights like this reminded her of what she had lost, of the love she once had, of the warmth that used to fill her bed. Her life had been quiet for too long, too still, and she had learned to live without expecting anything new. But something about tonight felt different. It wasn't just the laughter or the sudden company. It was the way the house felt awake again, the way the rain seemed softer, as if the world was holding its breath. Around midnight, the voices upstairs grew quieter, but she could still hear them. Low, thoughtful, the kind of late-night talk that only happens when the world is asleep. She turned on her side, listening without meaning to, catching small pieces of conversation. Noah's voice, deep and calm, said something about his family, about how far he'd come from home, about how he never really felt like he belonged anywhere. Ethan laughed, saying he was overthinking again. But Noah's tone stayed quiet, gentle, real. Claire felt something tighten in her chest. She didn't know why. Maybe because she understood that feeling too well. That quiet loneliness that comes even when you're surrounded by people. She closed her eyes, trying to sleep, but her mind wouldn't rest. She could still see Noah's face when he first smiled at her. That shy kindness in his eyes. He reminded her of something she thought she had forgotten. The feeling of being noticed, of being seen without needing to speak. The rain grew heavier, wind pressing against the windows. She got up, wrapped herself in a blanket, and went to the kitchen for water. The house was dim, the only light coming from the hallway. She paused when she heard soft footsteps upstairs. Then silence, then the sound of laughter again. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to make her smile and shake her head. "They're young," she whispered to herself. Let them have their night. But when she went back to bed, she couldn't shake the restless feeling inside her. She tried to read, but the words blurred. She turned off the lamp, but her heart kept wandering, drifting toward memories she hadn't touched in years. She remembered how her husband used to fall asleep before her, how she'd lie awake listening to his breathing, feeling safe beside him. That feeling had vanished after he passed, and no one had filled that quiet space since. Now, in the distance, she could hear the low hum of the boys talking again, their voices soft, almost blending with the sound of rain. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she felt both comforted and uneasy. When the clock struck 1, Claire sat up and looked around her dark room. The rainlight filtered through the curtains, painting faint silver lines on the floor. She walked to the window and looked out. The car in the driveway glistened under the streetlight, water droplets rolling down like tears. The town was asleep, the world silent except for the rain. Yet her house felt alive, like it was breathing again after years of stillness. She wondered what the morning would bring. She didn't know, but she felt something stirring deep inside, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She went back to bed, wrapping the blanket tighter around her, but her heart kept its rhythm fast and unsteady. The sound of their laughter rose once more, followed by a thump and then more laughter. She smiled despite herself, whispering, "You two really won't let me sleep tonight." It wasn't said with frustration, but with warmth, a quiet amusement that carried through the dark. She turned on her side and closed her eyes, letting the sound of the rain and their voices blur together like a song. And in that moment, Claire realized something. Loneliness doesn't always end with noise or company. Sometimes it ends with the smallest reminder that life still moves, still breathes, still finds its way into quiet corners. That night, as sleep finally came, she felt something inside her shift. It wasn't love. Not yet, not even close. It was just the spark of something she had long thought gone. The spark of feeling alive again. Outside, the rain kept falling, washing the streets clean, whispering through the trees. The old house, after years of silence, had found its heartbeat again. The clock showed past midnight, and the rain still hadn't stopped. The sound of it was soft but constant, like 1,000 quiet whispers against the windows. Claire lay in bed, eyes open, heart unsettled. She turned from side to side, trying to calm her thoughts, but sleep refused to come. She could still hear faint laughter from upstairs, the boys talking, sometimes whispering, sometimes laughing again. She smiled faintly, pulling the blanket up to her chin, remembering how young people had endless energy. But even as she smiled, she felt that familiar ache of solitude pressing in. She had gotten used to quiet nights, But tonight the noise felt like a reminder of how long she had been alone. She closed her eyes again, hoping the rhythm of the rain would lull her to sleep. But then she heard it. Soft footsteps in the hallway. A pause, and a gentle knock on her door. Her heart jumped slightly. "Claire?" A voice called quietly. It was Noah's, calm but hesitant. She sat up. "Yes?" She answered, her voice half whisper, half surprise. The door opened a little, and Noah stood there in the dim light, wearing a sweatshirt and a shy smile. "I'm sorry if we woke you," he said. "Ethan fell asleep watching a movie, and I couldn't sleep either. I thought maybe I should check if we were being too loud." Claire shook her head, brushing her hair back. "No, it's all right," she said softly. "I was already awake." He looked at her for a moment, as if unsure what to say next. There was something boyish about the way he stood there. Polite, nervous but kind. "I didn't mean to disturb you," he said. "It's just, I guess I couldn't sleep." "Maybe it's the storm." Claire smiled. "It's fine. Come in for a bit. Maybe a cup of tea will help," she said. Surprising even herself. She wasn't sure why she had said it, but somehow it felt natural. He nodded, following her quietly into the kitchen. The house was silent except for the sound of the rain and the faint ticking of the clock. The light above the table cast a warm glow on their faces. Claire moved gracefully, filling the kettle, setting 2 cups. Her movements were calm, practiced, the kind that comes from years of caring for others. They sat across from each other, hands wrapped around steaming cups. For a moment, neither spoke, letting the quiet fill the space between them. Then Noah smiled. That gentle kind of smile that seemed to reach his eyes. "This place feels peaceful," he said. "Like time moves slower here." Claire laughed softly. "That's one way to put it. Sometimes it moves so slow it forgets to move at all." He tilted his head, curious. "You mean it gets lonely?" She looked down, tracing her finger around the rim of her cup. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but I've learned to live with it." There was honesty in her voice, the kind that came from experience. Noah didn't interrupt. He just listened, the way few people do, really listening, letting silence carry the meaning. They talked quietly, about small things at first, about the weather, about Oregon's endless rain, about Ethan's habit of forgetting things, and then slowly, about deeper things, about how people drift apart, how life changes, how sometimes you wake up and realize years have gone without you noticing. Noah spoke about his parents' divorce, about how he had always felt caught between 2 worlds that never fit. "I used to think I was the reason," he said quietly, "so I tried to make everyone happy. But I ended up just tired." Claire's eyes softened. "That's not your fault," she said. "Sometimes people just grow in different directions. It's not about who's to blame. It's just life." He nodded, looking down, a small, grateful smile forming on his lips. "You sound like someone who's been through it too." She sighed. "Maybe my husband passed away 3 years ago. It was sudden, and for a while, I thought I'd forgotten how to live without him." Noah's eyes lifted, full of quiet empathy. "That must have been hard." "It was," she said, "but you learn. You always do." The words hung between them like smoke, light, fading but meaningful. The rain outside softened to a drizzle, and the air in the kitchen grew warmer, gentler. They kept talking, the kind of conversation that felt effortless, where time slipped away unnoticed. Noah told her about his dreams, about wanting to write music. Claire told him how she used to paint before life got too busy. They shared little pieces of themselves, like secrets whispered into the night. Every now and then, their eyes met. And there was something in that gaze. Not romantic in the usual way, but deeply human. A quiet understanding between two people who knew what loneliness felt like. The clock ticked closer to 3. Claire yawned softly. "You two really didn't let me sleep all night," she said with a teasing smile. Noah laughed, the sound low and warm. "Maybe some nights aren't meant for sleep," he said, his eyes steady on hers. For a moment, neither looked away. The silence between them was full, not empty, carrying the weight of things neither dared to say. Claire finally stood, breaking the moment gently. "I should get some rest," she said. "You should too, Noah." He nodded. "Yeah, I should," but he didn't move right away. "Thank you. For the tea. And the talk." "Any time," she said softly. He turned to leave, but before he stepped out, he paused at the doorway, glancing back at her. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "You make this house feel like home." Then he was gone, his footsteps fading up the stairs, leaving Claire standing in the quiet kitchen. Her heart unexpectedly full, she stood there for a long time, listening to the faint hum of the rain and the ticking clock. The moment felt unreal, but not wrong, just simple, gentle, human. When she finally went back to bed, the sky outside was beginning to lighten with the first grey hint of dawn. She lay there with her eyes open, thinking about the conversation, about his kindness, about how easily they had talked, about the way his eyes carried a sadness that mirrored her own. She didn't know why it mattered, or why it made her heart ache in that soft, familiar way. She only knew that something had changed, not in a dramatic way, but quietly, like a seed planted in the dark. Waiting, outside, the rain stopped completely. The air smelled fresh, new. The world seemed to hold its breath. Claire finally drifted into sleep just as the first light of morning touched the sky. For the first time in years, she dreamed, not of the past, not of loss, but of something unknown, something gentle, something that made her feel alive again. When she woke, she could hear voices from upstairs. Ethan and Noah talking and laughing. The sound made her smile, but this time it felt different. It didn't echo through an empty house. It filled it, like sunlight spreading through open windows. She got up, made coffee, and watched the morning unfold. The sky was pale blue now, and the rain-soaked garden shimmered. She didn't know what the day would bring, but she knew one thing for sure. The night had left a mark on her heart. Quiet but lasting. It wasn't love, not yet. It was connection. The reminder that even the most ordinary night could become something beautiful if you opened your heart to it. The sleepless night had come and gone, but the warmth it left behind stayed, soft and steady, like the echo of rain that had finally learned to rest. And as Claire stood by the window, watching the sunlight touch the wet leaves, she whispered to herself with a small, secret smile, "Maybe some nights really aren't meant for sleep." The morning came quietly, soft and golden, as though the world itself wanted to keep the secrets of the night. Claire woke up later than usual, the sunlight already spilling through the curtains, warming the pale sheets around her. The rain had stopped, and outside, the garden shimmered with dew. Everything looked clean, new and peaceful. She sat up slowly, her mind still caught between the memory of the night and the reality of the morning. She could hear movement upstairs, footsteps, drawers opening, Ethan laughing about something, and then Noah's voice, calm and low. The sound made her heart skip for just a moment before she pushed the thought away. She got out of bed, slipped into her robe, and made her way to the kitchen. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. She moved around the kitchen out of habit, opening the blinds, washing a few dishes from last night, trying not to think too much, She didn't know why her chest felt tight. Like she had dreamed something important, but couldn't remember it clearly. A few minutes later, Noah walked in, his hair still damp from a shower. A simple hoodie pulled over his shoulders. He smiled when he saw her. "Good morning," he said softly. "Morning," she replied, keeping her tone even. "Sleep well?" He chuckled. "Not really, but I feel better than I thought I would." Claire poured him a cup of coffee without asking, sliding it across the table. "Here, this might help," she said. He took it, their fingers brushing lightly for just a second. It was nothing, an accident, but still, it sent a small wave of warmth through her. She looked away quickly, focusing on her own cup. Ethan came down soon after, his voice bright and careless. "Morning, everyone, man. I haven't slept that well in weeks." He grabbed toast and sat beside Noah, already talking about their plans for the day. They talked about driving to the coast, about catching up with friends, about heading back to campus later in the afternoon. Claire listened, smiling when needed, but her thoughts were somewhere else, drifting back to the kitchen table from the night before, to the way Noah had looked at her when he said, "You make this house feel like home." When she glanced at him now, he wasn't looking at her. He was laughing at something Ethan said, yet there was still a quietness in him, like a thought unfinished. As the morning light grew brighter, the house filled with the warmth of ordinary life. Dishes clinked, the kettle whistled. Ethan teased Noah about forgetting his jacket. It felt normal, and for a while, Claire allowed herself to enjoy it after breakfast. Ethan went outside to check the car, leaving Claire and Noah alone again. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was soft, filled with something unspoken but kind. Noah stood by the window, looking at the garden. "It's beautiful here," he said quietly. "I think I'll miss this place." Claire smiled faintly. "You've only been here a day." He turned to her. "Sometimes that's enough to know when a place feels right." Her eyes met his for a moment, steady and unsure at the same time. She wanted to say something, to thank him for last night, for being kind, for reminding her that connection still existed, but words didn't come. Instead, she said softly, "You should wake Ethan before he forgets what time it is." He smiled, understanding more than her words said. "Yeah," he whispered, "I'll do that," as he turned to go. He hesitated for just a heartbeat, as though something held him there. Then he nodded slightly and walked away, leaving her alone again in the morning light. The house was quiet after they left. The sound of their car engine faded slowly until it disappeared completely. Claire stood at the doorway, watching the road curve into the trees. The sky was clear now, the kind of blue that only comes after rain. She felt an ache in her chest, not pain. Exactly, but a soft heaviness, a mix of gratitude and longing. She missed them already, though she had no reason to. She didn't know what to call what she felt. Maybe she didn't need to. The day passed slowly. She cleaned the house, folded laundry, watered the plants, the ordinary rhythm returning like a song she knew too well. But every now and then, she would stop and glance at the kitchen table, the same table where they had sat talking until almost morning. The memory felt distant and close at once. That night, as she prepared for bed, she walked through the quiet house. Pausing by the window, the moon hung low, silver and soft. The world felt still, peaceful. She thought of Noah's words again. "You make this house feel like home." At the time, she hadn't known how to respond. But now, standing there in the quiet, she whispered to herself, "Maybe it finally does." Days turned into weeks. Ethan called now and then, talking about classes and campus life. Noah never called, but sometimes, when Ethan mentioned him, Claire would smile without meaning to. She didn't expect to see him again, but life, as it often does, surprised her. One afternoon, nearly a month later, she was leaving the grocery store when she saw someone standing by the parking lot, holding a small bag of groceries and squinting against the sun. It was Noah. He looked the same. Maybe a little more tired. Maybe a little more real. He saw her at the same time and smiled. "Hey," he said, walking over. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I," she said, trying not to sound as flustered as she felt. "How have you been?" "Busy," he said. "College stuff, life stuff. But I've been meaning to visit. I just didn't know if it'd be..." "Weird," Claire smiled. "It's never weird to visit." "Noah." He hesitated, then nodded. "Good. I'll take your word for it." They stood there for a moment. Sunlight between them, cars passing, the sound of ordinary life all around. It wasn't dramatic, not like in stories. Just real. Two people finding a quiet connection again where they hadn't expected to. Before he left, he looked at her once more. "I never forgot that night," he said simply. "You reminded me that sometimes even strangers can feel like family." She didn't know what to say, so she just smiled. "You reminded me of that too," and then he was gone again, walking away into the bright afternoon, leaving her with that same quiet feeling of warmth, the kind that doesn't fade easily. That night, as the sun set behind the hills, Claire sat by the window, watching the light fade. The world outside glowed in shades of gold and blue, and the first stars began to appear. She felt peaceful, truly peaceful. It wasn't the restless kind of longing she used to feel. It was softer now, like the memory of a good dream. She thought about how strange life was. How sometimes the people who barely touch your story can still change its ending. She turned off the light and went to bed. The house was quiet again, but it no longer felt empty. The rain began to fall outside, soft and familiar, and she smiled. Pulling the blanket closer, maybe, she thought. Some nights aren't meant for sleep, and some mornings aren't meant to be forgotten. She closed her eyes, letting the sound of the rain carry her away. Not into dreams of the past, but into something new. Something gentle, something alive. The quiet house, once filled with silence, had found its heartbeat again, not through grand moments or promises, but through kindness, conversation, and the unexpected warmth of human connection. And as the morning light returned once more, spilling softly across her window, it touched her face and the faintest smile that lingered there, like a secret only she and the rain would ever know.